It's This Is Going Well, I Think, with David Cooper. I'm your host, David Cooper. It's This Is Going Well, I Think, the show where no one's listening, no one cares, the show where every episode's the last episode. A fantastic lineup this show has tonight. It's a very special Wednesday. First, in about 5 minutes, we are going to talk to an Australian sex worker who recently made headlines when she said, sleeping with an escort is not cheating. Not sure I agree with that one, but I'm going to hear her out. Then it's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday with Gary Direnfeld. Gary's a therapist, a social worker, a counselor, and he's going to tell us about a little something called guerilla love. Get your mind out of the gutter. It has nothing to do with gorillas. And finally, some Meshuggah astronomers say they might have some evidence of a ninth planet in our solar system. The planet very creatively named. It's called Planet 9. We're going to go over that evidence with a very prominent astronomer named Tony Five, who lives in England. And in case you've never heard this show before, Tony's not an astronomer. At best, he's an idiot. So I'm looking forward to unpacking that story with him. But first, this. I thought I'd try out something a little bit different right now. David's minute minute of thought for 1 minute. Well, I took another mental health day yesterday. Look, I was feeling like shit. I've got a to-do list right now that's about 1,000 things long, and each one of those things was causing me stress, and it was all too overwhelming. I had a panic attack. There were tears. I saw my therapist that day. There were tears in my therapist's office. It's weird that I'm talking about this so matter-of-factly right now. I guess it's because I'm doing a little better. I can talk about dramatic moods that I'm in when I'm not in them, but when I am in them, I'm incredibly private. I don't know if you're the same way. But I didn't come here to just complain about my low mood yesterday. I came here to tell you about the power of lists. While I was swirling around trying to remember what I had to do, and each thing was leading into the next, and by the time I'd get to the final thing on the list, I'd forget the first thing, and I'd be reminded of the first thing, and it was all too overwhelming. A vicious cycle. But while I was swirling around in this cycle in therapy, my shrink said, why don't you make a list, of all the things I needed to do, so I didn't have to hold them all in my head at the same time for fear that I'd forget one. And while it felt like he was talking to me like I was a child, I knew that he wasn't, and I knew that it was good advice. So what did I do? At the end of yesterday, I made a list. And as I started making it, guess what? I started feeling better. I even checked a few things off last night. I checked more off this morning. The list is still way too long, but I don't feel terrorized right now about all the things I need to do. So there, that's where I was yesterday. That's why there was no show. But more importantly, that's the power of a list. And that concludes David's minute minute of miniaturizations. I forget what this segment's called, all right? All right, it's time for that sex worker in Australia who made headlines when she said clients that seek out her as an escort are not cheating on their wives. We'll find out. Is it cheating for married men to sleep with a sex worker? I think most people would think yes, but I'm here with someone who recently made headlines with the Daily Mail Australia. She's a model, a sex worker from Sydney. She transitioned from a career as an accountant to what she does now 3 years ago. Her name is Katija Cortez. Katija, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you chatting about this.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
I am excited. The article's salacious. It made headlines. But you want to just summarize what you said that got quoted before we get into the meat of it?
Yeah, so the article is scandalous, but why it's scandalous is because obviously women think it's not cheating. All the men commenting that say they think it's cheating, they probably ask the ones sleeping with hookers as well. So it's really only scandalous probably from like a woman's point of view. But yeah, so basically what it was is, I'm an escort. I do sleep with people for money, if no one knows what that means. And I see myself and a lot of my colleagues, we see a lot of married men, and a lot of them don't consider it to be cheating. But I understand the women's point of view. I was once monogamous myself. I once had a normal job, as you mentioned. I was a very conservative accountant. I never even met a sex worker once upon a time. And before doing this job, I absolutely would have thought it was cheating as well, 100%. So I understand where people are coming from when they're like, oh, it's cheating. I get it. But yeah, it's kind of when you understand like man situation a little bit. I don't want to sound like I'm hating on women or anything, but yeah, I really like doing my job. You really get to delve deep into like the psyche of a man, like as a woman, which most women don't really get to do on the same level. And they don't think it's cheating. And I can see where they're coming from.
I kind of think of it in this frame. Cheating's a spectrum, right? There's going to a massage parlor on vacation and getting someone to touch you at the end of the massage. There's seeing a sex worker. And then there's having a 20-year affair, buying a second home for your mistress, having an emotional affair with this person every day, you know, being a shitty husband while you're doing it. I think there's a spectrum, right? And I think seeing a sex worker falls somewhere on there. So I still do think it's cheating, but I think it does fall more on the not cheating as much side of the spectrum because it's a one-time thing, potentially.
Yeah, so I just want to add in, which a lot of people were commenting saying that I'm the one cheating. I'm not the one cheating. So let me just put that in there. I have no emotional attachments to anybody. So the person in question is the guy, because I'm single. I don't owe anything to anybody. But yeah, so a lot of men are in sexless, loveless marriages, right? But it's not even just the men, it's women too. A lot of women are also in sexless, loveless marriages. And what people need to realize is that the sex workers don't come first. I've never had a client come to me being like, oh, the sex with my wife is so amazing. Like, we have such hot sex. It's never that. There's always issues, right? But yeah, as I said, it's not even just men. All of the male escorts that I know, all of their clients are women that say, yeah, like my husband and I, like my husband doesn't look at me, he doesn't touch me. So the sex workers don't come first. What comes first is the sexless, loveless marriage. And, you know, in America, you guys have it even harder with your divorces than we have here. A lot of my clients, like there's no love, there's no sex in the relationship. They barely even like each other. But the alternative to seeing a sex worker is, okay, I leave my wife and then she takes my house, my car, my kids, and then half my money. And then my whole life is over and I'm 50 years old and what I've got to do, start again. So that's the alternative in guys' minds to like a lot of this.
But it would still be cheating, right? I mean, I guess if you latch on to the headline, you're not really representing that point, that the alternative is much more bleak, the alternative is much more awful, but just purely semantically, like that is still cheating. It's lying, it's going behind someone's back. I don't want to even get into the morals or ethics of it, but wouldn't that still be considered cheating?
Look, honestly, I don't think it is. Like, none of my clients are coming to me wanting to run away with me, being like, yeah, I'm going to leave my wife for you. We're going to sail off into the sunset. It's more like, I mean, like, to like describe it really crudely, it's kind of like what you're saying. It's kind of like a rub and tug. It's like assisted masturbation. They're not coming to me telling me how much they love me and how much they want to leave their wife for me. A lot of the times they're telling me how much they love their wife and their kids, but like they're not having sex anymore and they just want to have sex. That's all it is. It's just sex. Right? There's nothing else to it.
So if someone is seeing you from a place of just needing to get emotional and physical needs met that isn't happening in the relationship, then that's what you're saying is okay. That should be acceptable. That isn't considered cheating for all intents and purposes.
Look, I get it. Look, it's cheating in the way like, okay, yes, your partner doesn't know about it. And look, but really is people are going to be lying about something, right? Like, yes, you can say, all right, the partner doesn't know you're going behind the partner's back, but I'm sure people go behind their partner's backs for lots of other things.
Oh yeah, well. Lying is like is a cornerstone of any healthy relationship. It's just when you lie and you go behind your back in certain ways, people get outraged. And should they? I think that's what I'm hearing from you. Maybe they shouldn't.
Yeah, look, I mean, I get where people are coming from, that it is cheating, but like, I really don't think that it should be considered cheating, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm kind of on your side here. I just think it is cheating, but on
every man is on my side. Men get it, women don't get it.
I do think it's wrong technically because you're doing something that betrays the trust of your other partner from that perspective. But if you're in a really broken relationship, you're not getting your needs met, I don't think it's as bad as other forms of cheating, I think is my argument. So there's some kind of overlap between you and me, I guess. So in some sense, I get it, but I also see it from the woman's perspective. It's like, well, my husband's lying to me, potentially doing unsafe behavior, although I assume you practice safe sex with all or most of your clients.
All of, yes.
Yeah. Oh, I figured it was all. I just didn't want to put words in your mouth.
But yeah, no, I agree. I see both sides as well. It's an interesting debate, definitely. I didn't think it was going to be like blow up the way it did, but it's very interesting to see like the disparity between like men's and women's thinking.
So you mentioned monogamy, non-monogamy earlier. Do you think you have skepticism about monogamy? And if so, is that what is that why you've come to this conclusion about it?
Oh, absolutely. Monogamy doesn't work. I've seen it to not work over and over again. And you know what? The ones that are coming to me with wives are the ones that you would least expect. Least expect, honestly. It's like, the doctors and the lawyers and the ones with the good jobs and the good houses and then cute kids that are doing well in school and stuff. It's the ones you'd least expect. I'm telling you, it really is. So like, so as I said before, I was very monogamous, very conservative once upon a time, and doing this job and then seeing, and even just how like the men rationalize it in their head. And I'm just like, okay, well, like, so I mean, I could be in a monogamous relationship with someone who seems like the perfect guy that's doing everything right. And then in his head, he could still be doing other things, right? So I've seen it time and time again that it kind of just doesn't work. And I mean, the best marriages that I seem to see or relationships are the ones where it is kind of open. Like a lot of sex workers have open marriages. And then I've seen a lot of couples bookings are becoming like ever more increasing in like frequency. So lots of, especially after this article, I'm getting a lot of couples hit me up. So yeah, like couples are getting into it together. So it's kind of like they're cheating together, I guess, like they're both seeing another person and like threesomes and sex parties and stuff like that. So yeah, and they seem to be the healthier marriages and the ones that are like really having no issues, where it's like, okay, you can kind of cheat, but let's like use know about it. And it's kind of like together. They're the ones that I see work the best, because every monogamous nobody can see me, but I'm doing my little quotation marks with my fingers. They're not working. They're not. So yeah.
Interesting. I was in a non-monogamous, I guess, open marriage. I was poly. That's when I met my girlfriend. I'm now in a monogamous relationship with her. I think they both work, but I think the major issue is the default is monogamy, and people never really look at it. They never really examine it to see if it works for them, only to end up in these marriages, these relationships, and realizing, no, it doesn't work for me. So I think it can, but both people have to want it, and both people have to understand what both sides are.
Yeah, you've got to be very strong-willed to make it work. Like you have to really want to not see other people. You're absolutely right. Like there are people that can make it work. I mean, I think I know people who have made monogamous relationships work.
I guess you never know, right?
When you don't know, you never know. Like that's what I'm saying, is that the kind of people that are seeing me, they're the ones that you would never expect. But yeah, I think there needs to be a bit more open discourse on like the different alternative styles of relationship. And I think that's one thing that Gen Z, I think that's the right one, is doing the right. Gen Z seems to be embracing lots more alternative relationship styles. And I think that is going to be the way forward. Yeah.
Got it. So back to whether it's cheating or not. Have you ever had any fallout where men, if their wives have found out that they've seen sex workers, and has there been negative impacts on marriages, or mostly this is done discreetly and men go back to their marriages and nothing ever happens?
Yeah, most of the time it's very discreet, and the wife doesn't find out, because I mean, the way everything is kind of organized, it is kind of quick, it is kind of discreet. I've had a couple of messages from like wives, I mean, presumably like being like, hey, have you seen my husband or something like that? And the practice is to just like block the number, not reply, because then that kind of we sell our time, but we also sell discretion as well. It's a service, and discretion is part of that service. So if I was to message every wife back being like, oh yeah, absolutely, that's not really what the husband is paying for as part of the service. The prolonged discretion is part of.
Yeah, you don't want to get involved with these people. He's retaining you for a service. If there's a mess in his personal life, that's not really your business to get involved.
Exactly. It's got nothing to do with me, right? So I've had two messages like that, and then I've had one other married client that's told me that his wife had found out, and then they were already on the rocks and already going through a divorce, and then she found out and got angry, and he's like, well, we're literally in the middle of a divorce. I don't know what you want from me. But yeah, so nothing else, but I've heard stories from other girls where like they've had like wives rocking up to their house or like stalking them and stuff. So crazy things do happen. Girls can be crazy sometimes. I know, I'm a girl. I can be crazy sometimes.
I mean, men can too. You're not the only gender that's crazy at times.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
So I'm here with Katija Cortez. She's a model, a sex worker from Sydney, Australia. She transitioned from being an accountant to sex work 3 years ago. She recently told the Daily Mail Australia that she doesn't think married men who sleep with her are considered to be cheating. I am really interested in the fact that you transitioned from being an accountant to a sex worker. Do you want to discuss this more in a moment, Katija?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do it. I am here with Katija Cortez, who's a model, a sex worker, who had a career change a few years ago, and I really do want to talk to you about this. Welcome back, Katija.
Thanks for having me back.
So, you were an accountant before you transitioned to being a sex worker. Please, tell me what kind of an accountant you were.
Yeah, I wasn't just an accountant. I was a chartered accountant at a Big Four firm.
Oh my goodness. Are we talking tax stuff, revenue stuff? Like, what are we doing day to day in this job?
I was a senior auditor.
Wow, senior auditor. There's nothing that doesn't scream sexy about that. So you were doing this, and how many years were you doing this before you started getting the itch to maybe change careers?
If you include my time studying as well, it was 7 years of being an accountant. Yeah.
And do we go from, like, at what point do you realize that sex work is a viable career path to you? Did it happen gradually over time, or did you just meet someone and they exposed you to it? How do you decide from going to work every day as an accountant at a big box firm, it sounds, to transitioning into this career?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a random transition. I kind of everybody will tell you that they just fell into it, but I really did. So I was an accountant for forever. And I think that the only reason, I don't think I ever wanted, like looking back, I realized I'd never wanted that life, right? But I grew up in a very conservative area. I went to all the private schools, conservative, well-off family. We only hung out with conservative, well-off people. So that was the circle that I grew up with, and there was no alternative life path. It was you went to uni, you got a doctor, lawyer, accounting, engineering degree, something like that. You got a job that you hated. You got married, you had kids, and that was it. There was no other alternative lifestyles. I always knew at the back of my head that wasn't for me. And I knew that something that I always wanted to do was I wanted to move to the city, and I just wanted to be around that because I lived kind of in the suburbs. So when I was 25, it was like in the middle of COVID, I moved to the city. I left literally my whole life behind, like in the suburbs. And yeah, started hanging out with a whole bunch of like entrepreneurs and just really cool people that were all just doing their own thing. And part of that group was a couple of sex workers. That was the first kind of time I ever met a sex worker. And it was very eye-opening because I used to judge sex workers being very conservative. And I was like, oh, they're actually just normal people. This is interesting. That's not what kind of made me first try it. So I then, during COVID, and I was hanging out with all these people that had their own businesses, and I was like, this, I don't want to, I want to live life like how these people are living and do my own thing. So I just quit my job sporadically as an accountant to pursue my dream, which was to be a writer originally. So I tried applying for jobs doing business writing, so like businessy kind of writing.
Like copywriting for companies and that kind of thing?
Yeah, because I was like, I had 2 business degrees at the time and I had experience as an accountant. So I was like, surely I can get a job doing that. And I got rejected from everywhere because I didn't have a writing degree. And I was like, I've already just like quit my job. So I enrolled in my writing degree with the hopes of eventually being a writer after like I finished my like 1 year master's. I think it was a year and a half doing my master. That was my master's degree at that time. And then, my friend was doing OnlyFans, and OnlyFans was blowing up at this time. And she's like, do you want to do it? And I was like, well, I mean, I just quit my job and I've just enrolled into this like $30,000 degree. So yes, I will do this. And then I didn't expect it to kind of take off as it did. But I'm glad that it did.
So you go from meeting these people, you kind of living your conservative life beforehand. You might not have, in your vision for what people could do, this career path. You just didn't think it was something you could do. I can relate to that. I didn't realize being on the radio was something you could do until somebody invited me on a radio program. But that's my story. Let's get back to yours. So you do this, you move to the city, you meet some of these people, and you decide to try OnlyFans. But that's not that's not doing. I'm trying to. What's the best word for actually sleeping with clients? I'm trying to like.
We call it an escort here in Australia.
An escort, of course. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's taking photos. That's trying to monetize just like recorded content that you create. How do we go from there to being an escort?
So the girl that I originally started doing OnlyFans with, she was also an escort as well. And then after we were doing, she was like kind of helping me do OnlyFans a bit. And then eventually she's like, hey, do you want to just do escorting as well? And at first I was like, no, like I'm like getting my 3rd degree. Like I don't, as I kind of briefly mentioned, like I used to judge sex workers once upon a time. So I was like, that's not for me. And then, I don't know, she kind of just convinced me a little bit and explained to me a little bit more how it was. And I was like, you know what, I'll just try it. What's one booking going to like hurt me? Like, it'll be fine. And then I tried it and I liked it and I stuck with it. And it really, I didn't expect to be doing sex work for as long as I have been. I originally thought it was just going to pay off my writing degree and then I was going to be a writer. And then obviously it just took off and I was like, I do enjoy it. I do. People think that like sex workers don't enjoy their jobs, but I genuinely do enjoy it. And I think part of that is because I know what the other side is. Like I have a lot of girls that I know that do sex work that hate it and they dream of having like a desk job. I had a desk job and it was f***ing shit. So I know what the alternative life is like and it's much worse.
Do you think having that experience of doing the corporate grind, the 9 to 5, has really made you enjoy this more? Because now you know that the grass for you isn't greener on the other side.
Absolutely. Because I think what makes a lot of people not enjoy this as much is thinking that the grass is greener on the other side. Like they want the white picket fence with the husband and the normal job one day. And I had that really kind of. I didn't have the husband. I did have a boyfriend and stuff at uni that I could have gone down that route. And I didn't want to. That traditional life was not for me. So I don't think I'm missing out on anything because I very much had it and it was very much not amazing.
What's wild to me is about 3 years ago, something happened that the media, at least in United States, Canada, were calling the Great Resignation. And it was just young people, millennials, older Gen Zs, deciding that their basic 9 to 5 job, that their careers that they found boring was not for them, and they were going to resign from their jobs, and it happened, to pursue careers or anything that they were passionate about, even if it was for less money. Albeit your path is a little less traditional, going from accountant to sex worker, you're part of something that kind of happened 3 years, and you're just a really, well, from, headlines example, an extreme example of it. To me, it's not that extreme. But that's kind of wild. Would you say that you found your path with this stuff, or you're still considering becoming a writer again? Like, is this what you want to do forever?
I do want to be a writer eventually, but I definitely have a few more good years left in me for this. So a fair few more good years. I know, and it sounds weird to say, like being like, oh yeah, this is my passion, because like how sounds weird to think like, oh, can sex work be someone's passion? But I mean, I truly think it is, and it's not all just about sex, especially like with how I've kind of taken things. Like I've used it to pivot into like lots of other different things. So I have a podcast as well, and doing all the media stuff, and I've done some modeling and things. So I really use it as like a springboard into lots of other things as well. But I know COVID, it really was like a game changer, wasn't it? And I've got COVID to thank for it. Like I look back fondly of COVID, because I think if COVID didn't happen, I think I would probably still be in my mundane job, with my mundane life, probably.
Yeah, I was mulling quitting my job. I had a corporate job before I went into radio, podcasting, media, that kind of stuff. I was mulling it over before COVID, but COVID really helped me leave the city. I was living in San Francisco, but I wanted to move to either New York or Los Angeles, because that's where all the kind of media people are, and that's where you go when you want to make it. And I was kind of mulling over my job, but all these things were tying me to San Francisco. And when the pandemic happened, it just washed them all away. All the places I went, all the friend groups I had, they all kind of got fractured or closed down. And I have the pandemic to thank as well. And I think a lot of people did. They felt unmoored. They felt like nothing was tying them down because everything was shut down, and that they could just change their jobs. And a lot of people did. I do have to ask, what do you like so much about this work?
Yeah, look, so a lot of people think it's just sex. It's really not. Like, sex is actually a very small part of what we do. a lot of what we do is just talking to people. It's like relationship building. It's kind of like client relationship management. It's like we go to lots of dinners, we watch lots of TV with people. Like I have clients that come over and we don't even have sex, and all we do is like talk and watch TV and like cuddle. So it's really kind of just about building these like really cool relationships with people, and people start to see you as sort of like a friend or a girlfriend, a confidant, and people take you out to like really cool places and invite you to really cool things. Like when I say people, I mean clients. So yeah, it's really just like being like a friend / girlfriend with like lots of different really cool people, and you get to meet a lot of interesting people too. That honestly is the majority of the job. The sex is really a small part of it.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing. Tell me about your podcast. I would love for people to check it out. I myself may give it a listen. Tell me about it.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, it's called The Cat and Mark Show, and it's myself and my co-host is a guy called Marcus Wolf, and he's an international sex coach. So yeah, we talk about a lot of like topics, sex, dating, relationship, and it's kind of interesting because I'm like pay for sex, and he's no, don't pay for sex. Let me teach you how to pick up girls.
I love that contrast. That's so funny. Well, thanks for doing the show. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you telling me about your journey and going over the article that made headlines. Thanks again, Katija.
Thanks for having me.
Katija Cortez is a model, a sex worker from Sydney, Australia, who transitioned from being an accountant to a sex worker 3 years ago. All right, the time has come. The time is near. It's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday, a horribly named segment that I just won't change. We'll hear from Gary Direnfeld, a therapist, to discuss what he calls guerrilla love. It doesn't involve gorillas. I think it involves teenagers. So that's coming up in a moment. Gary Direnfeld.
Boom.
Social worker, therapist,
Man about town.
ballet dancer. You're so many things, and also so many not things. Before we started, I was about 2 minutes late, and you told me you were on your phone. I know what I do when I'm idling on my phone. I go on Reddit. I browse social media. What do you do when you're idling on your phone? I could not guess for the life of me.
I post to my Facebook page 2, 3, 4 times a day. And the content is, how to get along with others, mental health, some of my personal life stories. So I'm always monitoring and moderating my page so that it is a safe place for people to comment. And that means I got to check it really regularly. I have 23,000 followers. And I got to tell you, David, my page, the followers are amazing, because they are actually very respectful. They rarely posts anything inappropriate. It's if a new person comes along and they think they can post the crap that they get away with elsewhere. Man, they're blocked, they're deleted so fast. So yeah, I spend too much time doing that.
So you're grooming the page. I'm looking at it. I don't really understand the difference between a like and a follower, but you got 23,000 followers and you only have 20,000 likes. So presumably 3,000 followers do not like you.
I've been trying to figure that out for as long as there has been Facebook. I think that if you like, you may get some of the posts. If you follow, you get all of the posts on your wall. I think that's one of the
Let's get Zuckerberg on the line.
Yeah. Mark.
1-800-Zuckerberg. I actually met him a long time ago. It was 2012. It was before I moved to San Francisco. I got invited to this cool party with early, mid-20s people, like electronic music. And after the party, I thought, if I move to San Francisco, this is going to be my life. I never got in.
That's A-list. That's A-list stuff,
I know, right? And I thought all I have to do is move to SF and I'll be Mr. Cool and this will be my life. I moved. I never got invited to another party like that again. But I went right up to him and I said, "You look like a big Jew. Where were you bar mitzvahed?" And he looked at me like I was crazy. And he was like, New Jersey. And then he just kind of like looked at me, and then a bodyguard got between me and him. And he's like, "Nice to meet you." And then he walked away. That's my Mark Zuckerberg story.
Oh my God, that's hilarious, actually.
My friend who invited me to that party was also like, I thought this was going to be my life. And he also never got invited to a party like that again. I don't know. You get to look through this looking glass, and then you think my life can be like that. And then it doesn't play out that way.
Oof.
That's life.
Yeah.
Speaking of life playing out a certain way. You did not blog about a concept in therapy, in social work, in counseling. You blogged recently about a bog experience. I have one myself, but I want to hear about your bog experience before we go into the therapy topics.
I have a kayak. I'm not in the best shape ever. I was getting into the kayak and I rolled over into the waterway. Our house backs onto a man-made lagoon. It was man-made in about the 1920s, and it has a marsh bottom. There are water snakes, snapping turtles, leeches, bloodsuckers in there. And there I was in my overturned kayak and not feeling very happy. That was the bog. I got bogged down.
How did you get out of the bog? Are you still in this bog to this day? Gary joins us live from the bog right now. You must have gotten out of it.
The Sea-Doo is on a floating dock. So that floating dock sits about 6 inches on top of the water. So I wanted to pull myself onto that. And the first instinct is you push down to jump up. The water in this bog is only about 3 feet deep. It's not deep. But when you push down, you actually inject your feet into the marsh, into the bog. You don't go up. You wind up going lower.
I know.
So now I'm in 4 to 5 feet in kind of like a quicksand.
Yes.
Feeling.
My story involves this as well, but go on.
Gross. So then I realize I have to like muscle my way onto the Sea-Doo platform. And it was a mess.
Sounds messy. I was on a canoe trip as a child with my campmates. I was about 12, and we ran a bog. We ran aground, kind of. It was like a shallow bog, maybe half a foot deep with water and schmutz. And so
schmutz, exactly.
I was in the front of the canoe, and my friend was in the back, and he's like, "Get out and walk the thing out of here." And I unstuck us, and I was like, "Okay."
Right. On the surface, it sounds great.
So I do it, and I take a step into the bog, and then I go to take another step, and instead of going up, my foot goes down, and the more I try to push to get out, the deeper I sink, and I ended up having to put my belly on the canoe and kind of wiggle myself out. But I thought if this guy canoes away, I'm going to sink and die. And it was actually terrifying. And I wasn't scared of quicksand until that day. But when people tell me they're scared of quicksand, I completely get it. It's terrifying.
Yeah. And last year, I helped a neighbor get one of those water snakes that it had crawled into his canoe. And we're there with the paddles, not hurting it, just trying to lift it out. And that was a good 5-foot snake. And I'm not a snake person. I'll be the first to admit it. And so the thought of being here in the water, it's like, oh, this just isn't good.
Lions and tigers and bears and snakes and spiders and leeches, oh my, as the old saying goes, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, we only have a couple minutes, so let's keep on going down the weird train rather than the Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday train. Your mom, she's turning the young age of 100 next month. Does the Queen write her a letter? I guess if she's dead, she probably doesn't write a letter. But apparently the Queen, if you request it early enough, will write if you're a British subject. No, sorry, not British subject, a royal subject. The Canadian monarchy is separate from the British monarchy. If you write to the monarch early enough, they will send you a letter on your birthday. I heard that. I don't know if it's true.
We have the certificate from His Majesty the King.
Good.
From the Governor General of Canada, from the Prime Minister of Canada, and the Premier of Ontario. We have all these certificates on her behalf.
Just congratulating her on 100.
Yes.
It's my favorite congratulations because it's really, you did nothing. You lived. You know, most like the Order of Canada, you achieved greatness in the country and you get the highest civilian reward. But this one, you lived. But honestly, it's quite an accomplishment.
Well, my mother's a special woman. And it is an accomplishment. She has been volunteering continuously since about age 15 for the same organization.
To be clear, I'm not saying your mother doesn't have accomplishments. I'm just saying this particular one, getting a certificate on 100. All I have
to do is live.
Yeah.
She had a hip replacement after a fall and break 3 years ago.
Wow.
And that was during COVID. We were going into her hospital room one at a time, the family, essentially saying goodbye. She survived it. She got the new hit. She went through rehab, and she's living independently again.
Is she walking now?
Oh, yeah. She's got a cane. She's got a walker since then. But she's in a condo. She practices on the stairs of the fire escape on the condo every day with an aide beside her, but she walks half a flight of stairs down and up, I think 2 or 3 times, which, come on, at that age, unbelievable.
At my age, my back's killing me, my knee's killing me. I'm not getting any younger, Gary.
She is more up to date on today's news and what's going on in the world than I am, maybe even you and me combined. And she has such a great following on my Facebook page. Whenever I post something, a video with her, she gets more hits than I ever get. She's just wonderful, just a wonderful, wonderful person. And so I've organized with Naamat, the Jewish women's group that provides services to women and children, mostly exiting violent relationships. I've organized with them to do a luncheon and a benefit in honor of her name. And we're doing that June the 2nd.
Well, I've watched videos with her. Admittedly, I've watched more videos of yours with hers than yours alone. No offense.
I know.
She's lovely.
Her and my dog, they get more hits than I ever get.
She's lovely, and here's to another 100 years.
Thanks.
Although eventually, I've seen a lot of movies where people live forever, and the plot seems to be towards the end of the 1,000,000th year, the 1,000th year, whatever. These people just want to die. So eventually, you kind of want to die.
I can talk very candidly with my mother, and one of the conversations we have is that she's the last one standing of most of her peers, and certainly of all of her family. It is a mixed blessing, as she and I discussed, living this long, because you pine for, you grieve all your losses, and that never gets easier. It gets compounded. So as wonderful and upbeat and positive a person as she is, she does have to deal with loss and grief. That is quite profound.
Yeah, my friend Cece is 74 now, maybe 75. We met when she was 70 doing stand-up comedy, or maybe she was 69. She just claimed to be 70. I don't know if she liked the number better, not important. She surrounds herself with young people. She's like a really good friend of mine. She's one of my close friends, and her daughter's older than me. And whenever I was invited to Christmas at their house once, I was invited to Thanksgiving at their house once. And when I was there, the daughter was just always rolling her eyes that her mom keeps young people around because her daughter's in her 40s. But honestly, I think it keeps her young because,
One of my other best friends died at 94. I'm 68. So there you go. Another vital woman. Her first name was Michaela, also a therapist. And she was brilliant. She was bright. She was feisty. Oh, my God. Would she ever, turn a phrase on me if she thought I was going in some direction she didn't like? It was such a pleasure. I loved her.
Such is life.
So, yeah, we can have friends of all ages.
Okay, when we come back, we are going to do Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. Gary's got a concept he calls guerrilla love, and that's not making love to a gorilla, which is gross and illegal. It's something entirely different. We'll be back with Gary Direnfeld in a moment. Therapy Thursdays. Oh, what's going on, Gary?
I'm just clearing my throat.
I'm leaving that in. Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday with Gary Direnfeld, social worker therapist. He can be found online at yoursocialworker.com. He's got a Facebook page with 23,000 followers, but only 20,000 likes, which implies that 3,000 of his followers do not like him. I am not counted among those 3,000. Gary, welcome. Thanks.
So actually, I wonder if that means 23 plus 20. I wonder if I've got 43,000 people connected. Like, I don't understand this stuff.
I like to think that it's 23,000 combined, except 3,000 didn't like you. That's what I like to think. Whether it's true, I can't say. Probably I'm wrong, but this is what I choose to believe.
You're a
and
bugger.
Ever since I moved from Canada to the United States, if I choose to believe something, it makes it true. That's what's beautiful about being American.
That's what being in the States does to you.
Yes.
A feeling is a reality.
what I want to believe is true, and what is true is what I want to believe. And if you don't like it, go back to your country, I guess is the, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Guerrilla love.
guerrilla love.
So, we're talking about teenagers, and we're talking about those situations where there is a great big rift between parent or parents and the teenager, and you've lost the relationship. You've tried punishing, you've tried cajoling, you've tried threatening, and you can't get your teen on track. And typically, this is a 14 to 17, 18-year-old. So, what do? Parents need to understand that at this age, the ability to control your teen goes out the window. Yet that's what many parents are trying. They're trying to control the teen. So rather than control the teen, we want parents to have a relationship so that hopefully they can at least influence their teen. But if you don't have a relationship, there's no influence. So how do you restore a relationship with when things are so riled between you?
I don't know. With my parents, it was fractured from about 14 to 31 or 32.
Well, okay. Well, and the responsibility to make things better, it's always on the parent. Parents sometimes don't like that. They're telling the teen what to do. Parent, you got to do something different.
But wait. They gave birth to the teen, so the teen owes them everything. That's how it works, right? That's what I was taught.
Yeah, well, that's a little, and that's why you were cleaved from them for so many years. So I came up with this concept. I call it guerrilla love. We all know what guerrilla warfare is. You sneak up on your enemy combatant to slay them in the dark, in the middle of the night, and you take off sight unseen. In guerrilla love, we want the parent to give a light tap on the bedroom door, because they're always locked away in their bedrooms. Give a light tap, barely wait for the grunt, go in, go to your teen, touch them on the shoulder, pat their head lovingly, and get the hell out just as quickly as you went in.
In and out. I like it.
In and out. Here's what I tell people. If you linger, it gets weird.
Yeah.
And you don't want weird. You want to have that touch where the kid's experience is, what the hell was that? I thought my parent hated me, and they just showed me an expression of affection. And they have to resolve that dissonance. And the dissonance is, my parent is either crazy or they love me. And at the end of the day, they're going to.
The two are not mutually exclusive, Gary.
You know what? That's true too. They can both be there simultaneously. So we want parents to have that kind of touch once a day, every couple of days. You go in, the kid's at the computer, walk up behind them, put your hands on their shoulders, maybe give them a kiss on the top of the head, and get the hell out. I had one parent comment on my Facebook page saying my kid would go ballistic if I did that. I said, well, we can still practice guerrilla love when they're not in their room and you're passing by. Give them a warm glance, give them a smile, and then just keep walking. So you can start wherever you want, in a sense, what the child can tolerate. But what we want the kid to experience is, maybe they still love me, because every other interaction is typically a fight. There is no relationship in that, no positive relationship in that. And what's really amazing is, within a week or two, all of a sudden, like a turtle poking its head out of its shell, these kids wind up coming out of their bedrooms. They wind up showing up at the dinner table. They wind up saying to the parent, what's doing? The child risks re-engaging because they feel like they're not going to get their head chopped off for sticking it out. And where you go from there, parents, is rather than back to telling a kid what to do, we want you to get curious. How was your day? What's going on? And if you hear something negative, rather than cajoling or consequencing or admonishing, you look at them and say, wow, that is a lot going on. How are you going to deal with it, sweetheart, or son, or daughter? So we want the parents to develop a healthy sense of curiosity. And if that teen should ever say, what should I do? You can certainly offer your input, but parents, don't necessarily expect your kid to follow it. They're going to do what they think is right for them. And we have to sit back and allow it to happen. If there's a negative outcome, we support them through that negative outcome.
I always used to say that at my job, because I was a boss, and I would say to my employees, look, I think you should do things this way, but at the end of the day, you got to take responsibility for it.
That's it.
So even though I think the way you're doing it is bad, I'm letting you know that I think my way's better. But if you do it your way, not only can you, I will support you. And if it blows up in your face, I will help you fix it. I will not say I told you so. That's how I was as a boss. And that's kind of a metaphor for how parents should be. Give the guidance. If the kid makes the mistake, support them to fix it rather than say, I told you so.
Yeah. And I actually talk about a parenting shift where we move from being the boss, where typically it connotes, I'm going to tell you what to do, you have to do it. So we move from being the boss to being a consultant in the child's life. And as a consultant, we can offer our points of view, but at the end of the day, it's up to the client, in this case, the child, to do what they want for themselves.
It's like a lawyer, lawyer's only as good as their client.
So guerrilla love, show those brief, positive, loving interactions. But like I said, get the hell out quickly.
If the relationship's so fractured that if you enter the bedroom to give the kiss, even give the glance in the hallway, it escalates to an argument. Are there any suggestions? The only thing I can think of is okay, before the kid was 14, they liked cupcakes from the little bakery down the shop. So when they come home from school, I'll have a cupcake sitting on the counter.
You can that's a great idea. These are all expressions of love and caring. So you can get creative. You can have that cupcake available to them. And, if a kid looks at you snarly, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing that? Just shrug your shoulders and walk away. Shrug your shoulders like, I don't know. You get to play stupid and walk away. We don't need to take the bait. We don't need to go down rabbit holes anymore. We don't need to enter into the conflict. We, the parent, are making different conscious choices. And over time, it typically is met well by the teen.
Not always, but typically. I love this concept of not taking the bait. I feel like it comes up in so many new and different ways when we talk, like how not to get into a fight with your in-laws or at a Thanksgiving dinner, from how not to get engaged with your ex when you're getting divorced. Don't take the bait as a mantra shows up in many different forms when dealing with concepts in counseling, don't you think?
Totally. And the other one is, keep your calm. Just keep your calm. It's hard for another person to remain agitated when you are forever calm. And so just as much as agitation can be contagious, so too can calm. We want to use that strategically. Bring your calm to any conflict.
Gary, you're a filthy bastard and I hate your guts. You didn't take the bait.
I was up to my ears in the bog. I was a filthy bastard.
I don't hate your guts, and you're not a filthy bastard. I just wanted to show people how not to take bait, and you did a great job.
Thank you.
Now I feel bad for insulting you.
Well, we say it every time we get together. I love you. I think you're great, and I appreciate your humor.
Gary, I love you too. I appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. And this concludes another Therapy Thursdays. This time on a Wednesday. We got to come up with a better name for this. Speaking of badly named things, it's Tony 5. Oh, wait, he's just badly behaved. Tony's our foreign correspondent. He joins us from Lake District, England. Why is it called Lake District? That I hope to find out. And then more with Tony, a newly discovered planet. Well, maybe discovered. Evidence exists. Is it good evidence? That I don't know. For a new planet in our solar system. The planet is just called 9. This was a very confused tease ahead. Very confused indeed. Tony 5 in a minute. Here to discuss the finer points of British life is our British lifestyle correspondent, Tony 5. Tony, welcome to the show.
Good morning, David. Good afternoon, David. Good evening, David. And good day to all our listeners.
Wow. If that's not an introduction, I don't know what one is.
No, I don't know what an introduction is either. How are you, young man?
I'm good. Just woke up, had my morning argument with my girlfriend, which was lovely. She won.
But what did you argue about?
Well, I was being a jerk. There's like a lot of chores we have to do. And so she was just reminding me, and I'm like, don't lay them on me in the morning. And I'm like, well, why not? She has every right to lay them on me in the morning. They have to get done. I was wrong. And if she's listening, which she probably isn't, I'm sorry.
I thought it was that old argument where you said that centimeters were the same as inches. Do you remember that argument you had where they were the exact same thing, but just in different countries? They were just called differently. Do you remember?
Yeah, but I told you that in confidence. What I say to Miranda in the bedroom is not appropriate for the air.
Fine, but no one listens anyway, apart from our mums. So, in all fairness, it doesn't really matter, right?
Your mom. My mom doesn't listen.
Well, does your mum not even listen?
She doesn't know how a radio or a computer works. So really, there's no distribution channel beyond me playing it for her, in front of her, for her to listen.
Oh, I understand. So how are we doing? I am currently, David, in a wonderful part of the west of England called the Lake District, David.
I find that so funny. You're like, I'm in Lake District. I had to look it up. What is Lake District?
It's called the Lake District. Yeah, it's a district full of lakes.
Yeah, but only in England would you call something Lake District. Here it's like Lake Ontario, Lake Titicaca.
Titicaca.
Yeah, I remember the joy of grade 6 when we were looking at the world map, and I think we got to South America. I think Lake Titicaca is in South America, and my friend points it out, and I'm like, not only is it titty, it's also caca.
But it's caca. I mean, who named that? Because I would like to give them like a Mark Twain award or something. That's beautiful, isn't it?
In another language, it might just mean like majestic swan. But in English, we got the titty, which is boobs, and we got the caca, which is poop. I mean, and caca's a very like kiddie word for poop. So that's...
Yeah.
How old were you when you first heard of this lake?
I think about 28.
Wow. Do you remember where you were on the day that you discovered Lake Titicaca? I certainly do.
Pretty sure I was in McDonald's having some nuggets or something.
So it's just funny to me that in England, there's a place called Lake District, and to you, that makes perfect sense. But there are other lakes in the world. There are other lakes.
Really? What, more than here?
I mean, in America, they call them the Great Lakes. There's 5 lakes that are greater than your Lake District, I'm sure. You guys drank all your water and killed all your trees, didn't you?
Yes, we did. And actually, it's quite a scandal in the UK at the moment. One of the major water companies has been disposing of poop in the lakes.
Lovely. Like untreated poop, just tossing.
Yeah, untreated, yeah.
Wow.
Sewage, yeah. It's been dumped there, and there's a lot of people getting sick. I think one person's died, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Quite serious.
Drinking poop water is not good for your health. I'm not a doctor, but I haven't read the science or the study, but I'm just guessing here.
I'm pretty sure there's research out there, David, that you can corroborate all that information with. I know you're not a doctor, but that's fair enough.
Going back to Lake District, I feel like England for the last, how long was the Queen for? Steph, she was like the longest reigning monarch ever.
She was, 116 years. Yeah, about that. I mean, give or take.
Give or take. But during her reign, if someone, at least in the West, said the Queen, they meant Elizabeth.
It was her.
If they wanted to talk about the Queen of Spain or the Queen of, like, I don't know, Norway, they would say the Queen of Norway, the Queen of Spain.
They're all hate queens. We're talking about the major queen.
Queen Latifah.
But it's like when you talk about chicken, you only really talk about KFC, didn't you? There's no other chicken, is there? Really?
It's true. Also, if you're like, I'm going to eat some bird tonight, people just assume it's chicken.
Yeah, but there's other birds. There's turkeys.
Duck.
Pigeon.
Duck.
Sparrow. Yeah. So, you've got a pheasant.
Pheasant. We were talking about your taste last week. Your not so exotic taste. What would be the most exotic thing you've eaten other than mushrooms, which you did a diatribe of? I don't even know what a diatribe is. What's a diatribe, first of all?
I think it's when you eat something bad and have to go to the toilet, right?
I think it means, a forceful and verbal bitter attack. Oh, wow. I thought it just meant a speech. See, I'm an idiot.
You are an idiot. No. So what else? The thing I told you, tomato sauce, but not tomatoes. We said
no. What would be the most bizarre, exotic? Like, I've had cricket tacos. It's like fried, crispy crickets in the taco.
What is the matter with you? No, I don't know what is the most exotic thing I've ever had. Name something exotic. I don't know. I think that meal at yours was relatively exotic. That duck.
Duck is exotic to you?
But it was quite confit. I don't know what that meant, and I ate it.
Cooked in oil for a long time.
Oh, is that what it meant? Oh, right. Okay. So, okay. That was nice. What else have I had that's exotic? I mean, I won't eat guacamole. Good God, I don't know what that is.
It's just
I
mushed
won't
up
eat
avocados.
Yeah, don't like avocado. Don't get it. Don't understand it. Never understood it. Avocado on toast. Don't get it. Don't understand it.
The
Don't
thing
know why
about the
people do it.
crickets is they weren't good and they weren't bad. And it almost made it worse. Like, I was hoping to eat something that was either vile and disgusting, at least to say that I did, or discover something delicious. But they were just like mediocre. It was just not that great. It wasn't that bad. And I'm like, what is even the point? If I'm going to eat crickets, it should be dramatic, whether it's dramatically good and I've been avoiding crickets my whole life, or the cricket tacos were garbage and then I could say I ate them and I almost threw up. But the truth is they were just kind of crunchy and flavorless.
Was it in a taco shell with like guac and like lettuce and mayonnaise and stuff?
I don't know what was in it. I don't think it was guac, lettuce, or mayonnaise, but probably like chopped onions and cilantro and salsa. Yeah, it was like dressed up.
And does it have a taste? Do crickets have a taste?
No, it's just kind of crunchy. It tasted like a crunchy fried thing with nothing in it. Like almost like
salty?
Like kind of like shrimp shells, I guess. Like, do you eat shrimp shells ever when you're eating shrimp?
No. Do you eat? I thought you're not allowed to eat the shrimp shells.
You're not supposed to, but if you're having like fried shrimp and there's a tail that's fried with the batter, I'll eat the tail because why not? It's delicious.
Will you?
Yeah, that's not uncommon.
Oh, I didn't think about that. I thought they were disgusting, but okay, I didn't know you could eat that. Like, I've had lobster. That's all right. I've had prawn, shrimp, as you say. What else I've had scallops. That's quite exotic for me, scallops.
Okay. I mean, the flavor's not exotic, but the thought, like what it is, it's like this round, decadent, fishy mollusk thing. Mollusk, yeah.
Crabs, mollusk. I'll tell you what I have done. Octopus. I wasn't a fan, but I have had it. Bit chewy.
I would say that's fairly exotic. It can be chewy.
Yeah, and calamari?
Less than squid. That calamari's more common than squid, I'd say.
Okay. What else?
And this concludes Tony 5 lists the foods he's eaten, a segment that...
Tony 5 lists foods, basically, yeah. This is a great episode, David. This is fantastic.
You listener, you didn't ask for it, you didn't want it, but you got it. Tony 5 lists the foods. I started it.
David, this is probably one of the best... Are we finished, yeah?
I mean, I'm about to. You want to have the final thought, Jerry Springer style?
Yeah.
That's your final thought, yeah?
So, what I'd like to say, David, when I'm thinking about food, life is not just about squid.
You know what, Tony? Be gone with this ridiculous banter. Let's actually do something newsworthy. There was a maybe new planet, maybe discovered in our solar system, at least evidence for it. It's called Planet 9. Tony, when we come back, we're going to try to do some real stories here instead of talking in circles and being idiots. Also, we're going to talk in circles and be idiots. We'll be back with Tony 5 in a moment. We are here with outer space object expert Tony 5. He joins us from the astronomy department at Cambridge University in Iowa. Tony, welcome to the show.
David, my esteemed colleagues, we have an announcement, David.
What is that announcement, Tony? It's an exciting one, at least.
I have found Uranus.
It was not doing well this morning. It was a bad scene.
Oh, what was it? Was it bad?
It was just bad. I had spicy food last night.
No, David, there is another planet. We have found it.
No, we haven't. I'm the one who has the actual story here. This is actually a wild coincidence for me because I've been watching this YouTube channel done by this Canadian that I cannot pronounce. It's like Veritasium, Veritaseum. It's like a science YouTube. It reminds me a lot of my buddy Dan Riskin, who I think you've met. And
I like Dan Riskin.
I like him
Very
too.
intelligent guy.
I know. I don't know what the hell he does on this show, but that's besides the point. I was watching an informational thing about this thing called Planet 9. And now there's these astronomers who believe there's an object out there that takes 10,000 years to orbit the sun, and it goes really far. So far, it would be like considered a dark planet away from the sun. It doesn't really get enough.
African-American planet, David. Let's stop using that terminology, please.
Fair enough, but it's so far away it doesn't really get the sun's light, and then every 10,000 years or so it gets kind of close, like maybe about as close as Jupiter or Saturn or something like that. It gets close enough to maybe spot, but right now it's way out there. But they think it's in this asteroid belt called the Kuiper Belt, which is not...
I've had a Kuiper Belt once. I could never get the last hole, though.
Agreed. It's not a sexual act that you do, the Kuiper belt. But the guy who discovered the Kuiper belt, whose name isn't Kuiper, I forget.
Oh, what a waste of time. Why call it that if that's not going to be your name? I'd like to call it the Cooper belt.
Exactly. Maybe that's just German for Cooper. Anyway, he's like, this thing doesn't exist. But all these other scientists say that it does exist. And there's a paper that has not been released, but it got kind of leaked to one news outlet. I don't know how peer-reviewed it is, but they're saying they found it. And the planet is called Planet 9, which I love. And it's about 5 times the size of Earth.
Ooh.
But these objects that are beyond the orbit of Neptune are called trans-Neptunian objects, TNOs.
That's LGBTQ Neptune, David. For God's sake, man. Do you want to get us cancelled?
I don't. Trans-Neptunian objects, TNOs. And I just think it's so cool that there might just be this 9th planet that's 5 times bigger than Earth that goes way out there. So far, we can't see it. And every 10,000 years, it comes along. And they're saying that there's gravity that gets exerted or whatever, or it's tugging on some comets out there. And that they can prove that it's there because they can observe the orbits of these comets. And because the orbits, I don't know, appear to be tugged a little bit by an object that's way out there, they're saying that gives enough observational evidence of this thing. But I want to see the photos.
Have we got any photos of it?
No, I don't. I can send you a photo of Uranus. Well, sorry, my anus. But so I just think it's
Did you ever see that picture where a couple of years ago someone sent a picture of a dying sun and it turned out to be a slice of chorizo? Did you ever see that? It's true. Someone took a slice of chorizo, took a picture of it, and it looked like a fiery sun. Just type it into Google, dude.
Chorizo fiery sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told you.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. Times of India. Scientists sorry for posting chorizo pic, telling readers that it was the picture of a fiery sun.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a fiery sun.
It does, and it's a bit of chorizo. You meant to say it properly, David. Chorizo. Chorizo, yeah. And that would be something I would do, to be fair.
Anyway, I just think it's so cool that there's this planet out there that we can, that's like in our solar system. And I was watching this YouTube about this thing, and they were just talking about how everyone always talks about deep space. You know, what's the new telescope called? What is that new telescope called?
Toys R Us?
The James Webb. They're always like, the James Webb imaged a distant galaxy from the moments the universe was born. But we don't know much about our own solar system, you know? Maybe about where our planets are, but there's just so much space out there. And it's undiscovered, and we can't really see these rocks because they're so far out, the sunlight that bounces off them is just too dim. And so they're using gravitational evidence, but they say that this planet is all but confirmed. I mean, I don't know if it's true. The paper hasn't been published.
Do you believe in aliens?
I think it depends what you mean by that. Do I think they're out there in the universe?
Yeah. Do you think they've visited us?
No, I don't think they visited us in the last 1,000 years.
Okay, interesting.
I don't believe that they have. I don't think there's any strong evidence to suggest they have. It's not strong enough for me that I've seen. But I assume they're out there. I mean, if life could evolve on this planet, there's no reason to think it couldn't on others.
You don't think we've been seeded by aliens?
I think that is a possibility, but you'd need evidence for a claim like that.
But what about all this stuff now? Have you heard of something called Göbekli Tepe?
No, what's that?
This civilization that kind of existed. If you type it in, it's Göbekli Tepe, something, I think it's in Turkey, where they found an ancient civilization that came back. And it's quite fascinating because they said, right, let's just say we as humanity, all of us died today, right? We died today. They reckon, or say scientists think, in about 1,000 years, there would be very, very little remnants of us. Okay,
I don't believe that. I don't think it would be 1,000 years, but I think eventually. I mean, all it would take was one asteroid to hit Earth to just kind of melt and destroy things, and then it would eventually settle, and Earth would start to look again like it looks now. But yeah, it would just be on like rubble, you know.
Like Earth, Wind, and Fire, and it would be. That's it, right? But there would be no evidence of us apparently. Like after, let's say 100,000 years, right? Now, if we've been around for if the Earth has been around for how many hundreds of millions of years, then it's quite comprehensible that there might have been previous civilizations that we have no record of, correct?
It's possible.
Yeah, so I think that might be true. I think that maybe there was.
No, you can't make the leap to say that because something's possible doesn't make it true. It just makes it possible. That's not evidence for it could be true, Tony.
Well, it is.
I have no good reason
but that's not how possible works.
I have no good reason to believe that it's true just because it's possible. But yes, it is possible.
Right. Let me challenge your theory. So if there were billions or millions of dinosaurs about, how come we've only found less than 100? Yeah? Riddle me that, David Cooper.
Less than 100 dinosaurs have been discovered.
Correct.
Living on the earth.
No, like they're bones, right? But there were millions of them. Where's the rest of them?
Okay. Just because you've only seen 100 sets of dinosaur bones doesn't mean... Again, that's called the argument from personal incredulity. I know you're just trying to get my goat, but you saying I...
Do they really exist? Like, where have goats come from? What have they come from?
Okay, first of all, there's evidence of goats. There's evidence in the DNA of goats that they have a common ancestor with us. And there's evidence of dinosaurs in the form of bones. There's no evidence for advanced civilizations of humanoids on Earth that happened 100 million years ago, as you say. It's possible, I guess. I mean, I'm not an archaeologist. I'm not a biologist. I don't know about the... I don't know about the composition of the Earth's atmosphere. I'm not a paleontologist. I haven't looked at the fossil record. It's possible, but there's no good evidence that I've seen and that experts have seen to make that claim. So the answer is, until we see that evidence, I'm not going to believe it happened.
So what you're saying is there could be a unicorn around.
It's possible.
And come from a horse that had like a horn, and then one day the horn fell off and it just became a horse.
First of all...
And then horses evolved.
I didn't think narwhals were real until like way too recently. I mean, those are just sea unicorns. I thought they were, and I've seen a lot of cartoons with narwhals. I thought, oh, it's just a majestic sea creature. Yeah. Look, a lot of things are possible. A lot of things that people believe I'm not sure are possible.
You've got a girlfriend. A lot of people never believe that, David.
I mean, still, some people don't. Like, for example, God. I'm not sure it's possible for an entity like that to exist. I don't know if the laws of the universe would even make that possible. And even if it is possible, that's not evidence that it happened. But there are certain things that are possible, given what we know. Potentially our life being seeded by aliens, this, that, and the other. It's possible, sure, but I'm not going to believe it until we see evidence of it. That's all.
But what about Schrodinger's bell when, if you ring it, the bell salivates?
I hate you. Anyway, Planet 9, it looks like it's out there 400 to 800 times as far as the Earth is from the sun, is this object to the sun. So it's way out there. But again, This is a pre-published paper. I don't know if it's had the scrutiny of peer review. I know a lot of specialists in the field are skeptics about the existence of this planet. And I know there's a lot of passionate believers who actually are astronomers with PhDs and stuff. But when you passionately want something to be true, your biases can get in the way. So... That's what that documentary I saw about Planet 9 kind of concluded. That there's not enough evidence, and the people who are really passionate about it, despite them being very intelligent and accomplished astronomers, it looked like their biases about wanting this thing to exist was getting in the way.
All right, but what about Area 51?
What about Area 51?
There's definitely aliens in there, man. 100%.
I hate you, Tony. But you know who I don't hate? You, listener. Thanks for tuning in. That's our show. We'll see you tomorrow. Blah, blah, blah.